We're holding on page Zayin on Medalef in middle, Tan Rabbanan. So it says like we're holding. So this is going to be connected to the brayse we learned before, that we learned from the pasuk ki palim chadavar lemishpat ben dam ledam ben din ledin ben nega lenega divrei rives b'sharecha. So we quoted all kind of different things that are halachas that are disagreeing with the Zaken Mamre, the rebellious or disobedient elder, has with the Sanhedrin. I mean, at the end of the day, it's with the Sanhedrin, even if he starts off a disagreement with his local Bezdin, but eventually makes its way to the Sanhedrin, as we learned, and they continue to tell him not to issue a psak, a ruling, according to his opinion, and if he does, then he gets punished with chet. Okay. Hi, Ariel. Okay, so we're holding a middle Tan Rabbanan. So the question is, we haven't yet discussed on what issues, we haven't defined the issues that he disagrees. I mean, we mentioned the pasuk that teaches us, but we haven't learned the rule of it yet. Hey, Shuki, we're just starting middle page, Pezayin Namad Aleph, Tan Rabbanan, on continuing with Zaken Mamre. So again, we learned before that the Zaken Mamre argues from the pasuk in Dvarim 17:8. We learned from there, we said before, different, seemingly the pasuk's just talking out different ideas that he could be arguing with. And now the Gemara is going to go into, it'll take us maybe a few, one or two classes at least, to go through all the cases. It almost goes through a lot of halachas and shas of where the Zaken Mamre could disagree and it could have an effect. So first we learned the machlekes of what type of halacha does he disagree with. So Tan Rabbanan, the rabbis learned, Zaken Mamre eni chayv ela al davar shezdaini kares v'shegigasei chatas. So the Rabbanan say that the only situation where we're talking about a rebellious rabbi or dayan or posek, that is only in a case where if the person transgresses willingly, knowingly, the punishment will be kares, which is death by heaven, and if he does it by mistake, then it means the person who violates the avera does it by mistake. So then the one has to bring a chatas. Means they can say that we have certain violations that the punishment is a lav, or you have malchus, but here it has to be something that he's disagreeing with that's connected to kares, that could cause a case of kares, and that's only if the person obviously is doing it knowingly. If the person who violates the transgression that they're discussing does it in a way of by mistakes, then it's a chatas, it's a sacrifice. So that's the opinion of Rameir. Rabbi Yehuda says, Al dover she'ikori midivrei Torah, pirusha midivrei seifrim. That the situation that we're talking about, where Zaken Mamre disagrees with the Bezdin, with the Sanhedrin, is something where fundamentally it's something that is biblical. That means there's a ikar, there's a yisoid that shows us the halacha that one should not do this or do this, whatever the question it is, according to Midaraisa, biblically. However, how we do it, the details of it, is only, hey Bruce, the details of it is explained by the rabbis. So in such a law where we're holding a middle page 87a, Mishrabi B or 3. I still have not found the art scroll for this section. Welcome back, Shuki. So we're bringing on first the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that the elder rabbi who disagrees with the Bezdin is only in a case where it's punishable by kares, by death from heaven, so to say. Kares means literally to be cut off. If he does it or she does it willingly, and if it's a shogeg, if it's by mistake, then the halacha that we're discussing would bring a sacrifice for shogeg. That's the opinion of Rameir. Rabbi Yehuda says it's something that it's ikare midivrei Torah. It has to be that it's fundamentally a question that's brought down. The halacha is brought down in biblically in the midaraisa. However, it's explained how to do it by bidrabanan. I don't think Rashi gives examples, but there's many cases like that. I mean, just a small example, for instance, would be, for instance, just even tefillin, right? Tefillin, it says, you should have totifos. The Gemara has to teach us what totifos means. We learned from it, there's the word tot and fos, and together, it's a Greek word, together it means four and four boxes. So it's not clear what tefillin is in the Torah. But the rabbis go and tell us about you have to put on tefillin on your hand, the box that has the four parshas, and you have in your head. Obviously, there's disagreements between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam and a few others about exactly how the tefillin is. But the rabbis explain the ruling of you can't have 5 boxes; it has to be 4 boxes. That everyone agrees with. So that's pirusha midivrei seifrim. So, for example, if the Zaken Mamre would say that tefillin needs 5 boxes, so then that Zaken Mamre is disagreeing with the way the rabbis explain the law of the Torah. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rab Shimon says, afilu diktuk echad midiktukei seifrim, even a small detail from the rabbinic insight about a law, he disagrees with a small detail of a law that's been established by the Sanhedrin that this is the ruling. So then he's considered a rebellious rabbi. That's the 3 opinions. I see over here, we're not going through Be'iyun. Seemingly, Reb Shimon is saying that if a person mamish just does a small violation, disagrees with the Sanhedrin on a small rabbinic law, diktuk is like a small little detail of a law of an insight of a law, then he would be considered a rebellious rabbi. The Ran, it seems like the Ran, Rabbeinu Nissen, which is a Rishon, says that it's talking about a diktuk of Divrei Seifrim doesn't just mean of any rabbinic ruling, but of the 13 attributes of Torah. Again, the 13 attributes of Torah, we have them initially explained by Hillel, really broken down to 7, and then Rabbi Shmuel breaks it down to 13. The rules of Torah, like Zera Shava, Binyanav, all the different Kal V'chomer, so all the different rules of how we learn Torah. So if he disagrees with one of those 13 rules of a small detail, but just the Ran doesn't seem to agree that it means any small detail of a law. Okay, but either way, that's the wording of Reb Shimon is afilu diktuk echad midiktukei seifrim. Bruce, have you found it in the art scroll where we're holding? Okay, let's make sure. All right, my time of the Rameir. So Rameir is the one who holds. This is the main opinion of the Gemara. The Rameir is the one who holds that the description of the rebellious rabbi is in cases of where if you're amazed, if you're willingly, you get karis, death by heaven, and where you are, and if it's by mistake, the person would have to bring a carbon. Rabbi Yehuda says it's talking about again something that has a general idea from the Torah, with the details comes from the rabbis. And Reb Shimon says even the smallest detail, let's say according to the Ran, of talking about the 13 attributes of Torah. But now the Gemara asks, so the Gemara continues. My time of the Reb Meir. What is the reasoning of Reb Meir? So he says the reason of Reb Meir is that it says like this: Gomar davar. So what's davar? It says by us. It says ki palei mimcha davar. Davar means like a subject, right? Something that's becomes wondrous, ends in a disagreement between this individual as an individual and his local bezdin, gets brought to the high court in the temple, and they tell him that the small rabbinic court is correct, and you should stop giving a ruling, not just teaching, but a ruling that would disagree with this conclusion. So it says ki palim chadavar. That's what the verse says, and then it says also that when we're talking about the laws of a mistake, where the rabbis give a mistake, we're talking about, where's the verse? Bepar helim dover. It says when you have to give a sacrifice for a mistake that happened in the bezdin, that there was a wrong ruling, and they realized that you were wrong. Let's say in the case of idol worship, so you have to bring a sacrifice to atone for that, depending on how it's broken up. If it's a majority, if why the people did it, but usually it's a sacrifice brought on behalf of the people because they listened obviously to the ruling and there was a mistake. So he says, Gomer davar davar chsiv hachiki palim chadavar, the mishpat v'chsiv hasam, and over there it says in the verse, I think we just learned it recently in the Torah. It says, if call das b'nei Yisrael yishku. I think it was the beginning of Yikra. If everyone made a mistake and something there was something that was nela, means the ruling was kind of taken away from us. We didn't realize it, and therefore there was a mistake made. So Mala so over there we say Mala Halan Dover Shechayvas Dainikaris Val Shigigase Chatas Afkan Dover Shechayvas Dainikaris Val Shigigase Chatas. So Rameir says that we compare the case of the Zaken Mamre of the rebellious rabbi with the case of a chat of a I think it's an oila of a korban helam dover a par helam dover. When you bring a sacrifice for a mistake, that there was a ruling of mistake. Now over there, it's not any mistake. It's not just if they say, you have to light 7 candles on Hanukkah instead of 8 candles on Hanukkah. Over there, we know the ruling is it's only about cases. Hey, Aaron, it's only about cases where there is a question of karas and shoigig. If there's a case of karas and shoigig where the punishment b'mezid willingly will be punishable by death and by mistake a carbon, so then if there is a wrong ruling and there's they realize the Sanhedrin realized their mistake, so then they have to bring a sacrifice atonement. So because the wording is the same, this is Gzera Shava. We compare the two cases. Therefore, Rameir says same thing about a Zaken Mamre. The Zaken Mamre is only considered a rebellious rabbi with regard to laws that are connected some way or another to the laws of kares, of death by heaven, or by mistake you have to bring a sacrifice. Again, now the problem is the Gemara is going to say, one second, we learned before last week that the verse in Devarim that talks about the rebellious rabbi quotes examples, right? The Torah itself gives examples, right? The Torah says ben dam ledam, different types of blood, different kind of din, different types of tziras, leprosies, things of revoice, of disagreements, right? Hey, Howard. So now we're going to try to figure out how all these cases are connected to a question of kares. Again, like Ariel Green said last week, there are things that come into effect. It's not maybe directly the ruling that is about something punishable by death. The ruling could be about a question of ownership or a question of leprosy, where the leprosy itself is not punishable by kares. It's only an issue of death if you become impure and then you go into the temple, right? So if we're not sure if you're impure or not, then you rule. An individual rules you're fine, you're pure, and you're really not pure according to the Sanhedrin, and you go into the temple accepting the ruling of the individual, of the rebellious rabbi. So it's a question of kares, right? There's problems here. There's outcomes. What do you call it? Knockoff effect. Okay, so he says like this. So now the Gemara says, Afkan Rabbi Yehuda, that's the ruling of Rab Meir. That's his way he learns. That's his limud to know that it's only talking about cases of kares and shoigig, kares b'mezid, and a sacrifice of shoigig. Rabbi Yehuda, what's Rabbi Yehuda say? Rabbi Yehuda learns it from Alpi HaTorah. This is talking about different verses of listening to the Sanhedrin, and listening to the rabbis. So the Torah, the Moshe Rabbeinu says also in Dvarim, Alpi HaTorah sheyarucha. So Ika Torah v'yarucha. So the verse says in Dvarim 17:11, the whole verse I'll read. Alpi HaTorah sheyarucha al mishpat asher yoimru lecha tasa lo yisasir min hadavar asher yagid lecha yamin ismail. Moshe Rabbeinu is telling you that when the rabbis give you a ruling of Torah according to their ruling and the judgment, what you should do or not do, don't even walk right or left. Don't go off the path of the rulings of the rabbis. This is one of the verses of the Torah which teaches us that a person has to listen to the rabbinic system. A person could say, well, I opened up the Bible and the Chumash, and I understand the verse to be differently. I understand Totafos to mean something else. I understand the Shabbos the violations of Shabbos to mean something else. So Moshe Rabbeinu warns the Jewish people in Dvarim before they go into the land that as the rabbis describe to you the rulings of the Torah, that is the rulings, and you're not supposed to try to go off you don't go off the path, right or left. You don't try to be more strict or more lenient. So Rabbi Yehuda learns from that verse that the verse uses the words Torah Asher Yerucha. From here he says that the rebellious rabbi is talking about a case where there's Torah. Means the Torah gives us the rule, the halacha, like let's say, but we don't know what that means, right? Then someone who opens up the Torah and says, wonders what does that mean? What am I supposed to be doing in this mitzvah of Shema that tells us to do something? So the rabbis say it means to put on tefillin and describes what tefillin is. 4 boxes with the 4 pashas, etc., etc. So that would be Yerucha. Yerucha is the explanation given to us by the rabbi. So this Rabbi Yehuda quotes this pasuk to teach us that we're talking about cases where there's a biblical foundation and explained by the rabbis. Okay, what's Reb Shimon's source to say that's talking about any kind of ruling, even a diktuk of divrei sofrim? So Reb Shimon says, it says the verse says in 6, also 17. Devarim 17:10, that you should do according to what you've been told, from the place of the rulings, which is in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so it says also over there. Yes, Shukri, we're going to get to the new moon. The new moon, all that stuff comes into play because of I mean, the Gemara is really going to analyze our mayor, but so most of them apply to everyone. We're going to try to figure out where's their cases of kares. Obviously, the new moon is Shuki asked, the new moon is included. The new moon is obviously something that could come into question of Yom Tif and especially kares, where it's a question of chametz, right? So even though, for instance, in history we have a story that King Chizkiyahu leaped the moon when he wasn't supposed to. Yes, Shuki. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just I'm calling back to Rosh Hashanah when we were learning about wasn't there a story of somebody who was declared an Apikaris because he had said that the new moon was on a different date and caused a whole community or he publicly desecrated Yom Kippur to like declare the day that was different.
I'm not sure what story you're talking about. Your memory is better than mine. But if you're talking about the story of Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Elazar, the famous story where Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Gamliel, where Rabbi Yeshua felt the new moon of Rosh Hashanah was one date, and Rabbi Gamliel had another date. Rabbi Gamliel forced Rabbi Yeshua to violate his own date in order
his own date, right?
Yeah, to show that that Sanhedrin has that there's rules in Torah, that there's.
So does that connect here to that same concept of having that strong of a type of ruling where you had to publicly desecrate it to do it?
Yeah, that was the foundation. I mean, the foundation was Rabbi Gamliel lived in very trying times. Where later again, I spoke about Kavi ben Mahalal. I wasn't that far ahead in the Gemara, but the Gemara actually mentions a Kavi ben Mahalal. But that says that he didn't violate it wasn't such a case because he wasn't put to death. But there's Rabbi Gamliel had to deal with it. I mean, that Rabbi Gamliel put it basically an end to the disagreement of the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel. Until Rabbi Gamliel's times, there was still this kind of huge war going on between the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel. That played out in politics as well. It came into the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. The house of Shammai were part of the Zealots, but the house of Hillel, supported by Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai, were more trying to find a compromise with Rome. So it went into politics as well. But Rabbi Gamliel put an end kind of to any kind of, and he had to be very strong, like the story you told, where Rabbi Yeshua had to violate his own date to show that he agrees with the ruling of the Sanhedrin. So again, back to Reb Shimon says, if assuming this is Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, he says he learns it from the pasuk that you're going to get a ruling from the word Haggadah in that place, meaning the temple where the Sanhedrin is, and it says no matter what they say. It means even though the word Hahu means that place, but he plays with the word Hahu to mean koldu, no matter what ruling the Sanhedrin says, if you deviate from it just the slightest bit. Let's talk about with the Ran or without the Ran, but if you deviate it a little bit, you are to be to consider a rebellious rabbi. Yes, Aaron.
Those two words you just mentioned, could you give us the definition in English?
Which words are we talking about?
Just in the same sentence, you use two words in a row in Hebrew, and I don't understand.
Okay, so the verse in Devarim says that it's talking about a ruling that comes from the rabbis. So the verse says that you will do everything that the rabbis told you. Asher yagidu lecha, that they give you. Haggadah means from the word giving over. So the yagidu, like we say the Haggadah, we tell over the story of Passover. So to the word yagidu, they're telling you the ruling. Min hamakamahu, from that place. So the Reb Shimon says afilu kolduhu, meaning to say that the word hahu means even anything. Kolduhu is an expression in Hebrew, means whatever it is, whatever the rabbis say. If you deviate from it, a drop, disagreeing with what they.
What's makamu?
Makamahu means that place. The place is referring to the temple.
And the word before that you were mentioning?
that they tell you. The
Okay.
ruling they tell you from that place. Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
No problemo. Omar Rav Huna. Now comes the Gemara. And this becomes, it's actually a great Gemara to learn, although the Gemara is going to go through almost the entire Shas, but the Gemara is going to go through the entire Shas. That's itself a good thing. We're going to go through now a whole bunch of laws that that if you want to understand each law, but Baruch Hashem, after one learns Rambam a little bit, it's easier to go through these laws. So here we have a story. So what happened? This is a great, and actually I don't understand the details of the story, just the technicalities of it. It says, Amalei Rav Huna, Bachanina l'Rava. Rav Huna, the son of Chanina, tells Rava, Tirgum ali masnisa lib dramer. The Mishnah that we said before, on top of the page of 87, that we learned last week, that describes the details of the laws that the rebellious rabbi disagrees with. So explain it to me according to the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Means Rabbi Meir says that it has to be a case of kares. And if it's not a case of kares, then we're not discussing a rebellious rabbi, only in a case where there's a capital punishment from heaven. So now go and tell me all those cases that we discussed before of dam, of blood, of all those cases. How does it go together? What are those cases of kares? So what does Rava do? Doesn't say why Rava does this. So Amalei Rava Rav Papa, I have to check. Could be Rav Papa is a student of Rava. So Rava tells Rav Papa, he passes the buck. Poik Tirgumalei, you go and explain it. So Rav Huna asked Rava, and Rava passes on the responsibility to Rav Papa to go explain what it means, ki pale, the pasuk ki pale, and how that applies to the rulings of kares. Like it says, what's ki pale? So it says, "B'mufla shebezna kasum damer." It's talking about someone who's from an establishment. I mean, we're talking about a rabbi who's part of the rabbinic system. That's a rabbi who's in the rabbinic system who disagrees on the following laws that could be connected to kares. Has to listen to the ruling of the Bezdin. Okay, now we're going to go through all the cases. Shruki, this is the first case that you asked. And we're going to try to figure out how is this a case of kares. We'll get through as far as we can because it goes 2 pages. So the first word it says again, the pasuk. I'm just going to read the pasuk again. The pasuk is in Dvarim. The pasuk talk. This is the rule. This is the verse that teaches us about the rebellious rabbi. Ki pala mimcha davar. When you have a question of davar means a subject. Then we have a question of mishpat, of ruling, of bein dam ledam, then different types of bloods, bein din ledin, of a ruling and a ruling, bein nega lenega, a question with regard to diseases or leprosies. Divrei rivois, I think divrei is his own word. Is what does the word divrei mean? What's the word rivois mean? What's the word bisharecha at your gate? And then it says, "V'kam to Elisa." You have all these questions, and then you disagree with your local bezdin. So then you have to go elamakom to the place that God chose and get a clarity, and then keep with the ruling. Okay, now he's going to explain all the cases. So he says, davar, mimcha. What is mimcha? What does mimcha mean? From you. Say yoyetz. That's a person that's the idea of giving advice. Meaning a person means a person who knows when are we supposed to leap the months and years. Means today we have a calendar. But back in the day, there was a whole bunch of considerations, like Shuki said, we learned in the laws of Rosh Hashanah, all the different considerations one has to have when we do or do not leap a year, or in this case, the question is a year, or even leaping a month. Kedetnan, like we learned, it says like this. Heini idu, what happens in a case where there was a question about when, how ahead in the year are we able to leap the year? Now, fundamentally, just go quickly, like we learned in Rosh Hashanah, the main time of concern for leaping a year is Pesach. There are other concerns. There's Tekufos Hashanah, there is even Yom Kippur, Sukkot gets into consideration, but the main concern is Pesach. When is Pesach fall out? Can Pesach fall out on the Chodesh Aviv? Can we bring the Omer sacrifice? So now we don't know how far. When do the rabbis in the courts analyze or continue to analyze the situation and are able to change the month up until what point? So there was a ruling that says, "Hey Neidu, There's those who gave testimony. Shemavir Mesashana Kol Adar, that you could up until the end of Adar. That means even though you sell, and this comes into halacha questions, not what we're dealing with now, but what do you do Purim, right? So let's say you did Purim the first month, and all of a sudden the rabbis see on the 26th of Adar that no, we need more time, so they leap it, which means you have to do another Adar, and then you do another Purim. Okay, so then the question: if you do it, don't do it. That's the laws of Purim. But it says, "Hey, midu." So there's those who said, "Shma'avir mesashana kol Adar," that you could do it up until the end of Adar. Chizkiyahu HaMelech did it on the 30th, which is a questionable day. Shahayu Aimer, there are others who said at Purim, that only up till Purim. But once Purim comes, it's too late. So so Rav Papa says this is where we have a question of a rebellious rabbi. Why? Because what Rav Huna is trying to say is, what's beautiful about this Gemara is Rav Huna is not allowing a person just to use their imagination what you could argue on. Rav Huna says to Rav Rava, who tells Rav Papa, I want you to give me exact arguments that we've had in the past, somewhere in the Talmud, where the rebellious rabbi would go according to one opinion, the ruling would be according to a second opinion, and the consequences could be a case of karas. You can't just make up ideas. Give me an actual argument where he takes an opinion. It's not just that you can't just say that the Torah says you can't eat chametz leaven on Pesach. So the rebellious rabbi says you can. We're not talking about such a case. No, there's no opinion like that. So we have to give me a case where the rebellious rabbi is part of an argument. There's an argument, and the rabbis ruled on that argument where the rebellious rabbi disagrees with the ruling of the Sanhedrin. So here we have this case where there are opinions who say you can only leap the year to Purim. And the Ha'idu, then there was a testimony saying that no, we've seen, means that this is a Ma'aser Rav, that they've leaped it all the way till the end of Adar. And now now becomes a question of the rebellious rabbis takes one opinion, whatever that opinion is, and the ruling is a second opinion. The Ilahai Gisa, if you go according to one opinion, Kashari Chametz Pesach. Why? Because now becomes the question of Pesach. And let's say now on the 20th of Adar, which is past Purim. Purim is the 15th of the month of Adar. On the 20th of Adar, there's a question: do we leap the year or not? We need to leap the year. So the opinion that says it's too late, so you can't leap the year. Another opinion says no, we have plenty. We have 10 days left. So then the question is, and there's a disagreement. The Sanhedrin ruled according to, let's say, the opinion of 30. That's the accepted opinion. But the rebellious rabbi says no, it's only up to Purim. So now the question is that their Pesachs are not the same. If their Pesach is not the same, they're eating chametz they could end up being a violation of eating chametz on Pesach. It's an outcome of the disagreement, and that's a punishable by karas, by death. So this says the either high gisa kashari chametz Pesach, either high gisa kashari chametz Pesach. Depending on how the ruling is, it ends up being that someone could end up eating chametz on the wrong day. Yes, Aaron.
So they all agree that this is the year. They just don't know what part of the year.
No, they all agree that possibly we need to leap the year, but there's a cutoff date. The rabbis have established a cutoff date of leaping the year.
But how do they know this is the year? They all agree this is the year?
No, it's based on a lot of calculations. This is it's a complicated subject, but the basic ruling is if the spring comes late, or the roads, or there's other considerations. It was a heavy rain. The roads are damaged. There's a lot of things they take into account. The crops didn't grow properly. They have to do the sacrifice for the new wheat. So there's a lot of considerations that are not just mathematical. They're also just practical of how things were and how the year played out. Right? You don't always know how the weather is going to be.
Well, from a purely mathematical perspective, right? There's basically 11 days less every year on the lunar calendar than there are in the solar calendar. So after 3 years, you're about 33, sometimes 32, right, days off. And so it's not exact that it's every 3 years. Sometimes it's a little bit more than, three, like a month off, and sometimes it's a little bit less, and because you're only a few weeks off, right? And so like the calendar month is a little bit less than the buildup that you have over 3 years. And so deciding whether or not to add a whole year can really offset the calendar. So all of those external matters about like whether or not the flowers have bloomed or whether or not anybody has done anything from the snow or that kind of stuff, it's really the best way for them to know, to make sure that it's aligned with the spring holiday, which is what Pesach is actually called in the Torah, Chag HaAviv.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, but the truth is, Shuki, just to disagree with you a little bit, what you're describing is the system they're using today of matching up the lunar and solar years, where you have every two, where you have a surplus. If it's because it's 30 days, and there's a difference of only sometimes there's a surplus, sometimes it kind of has to balance out. I think over 18 years, I think it is, which kind of gets more exact because not every leap year makes it exact. But like you said, sometimes it's 3 years, sometimes it's 2 years. But that you would have a mathematical equation. You wouldn't have to wait till Purim to know that. The question I think would be more things that happen in the season that they don't know. It's too early to know. And the question is now, is there a cutoff date? Like just a mathematical equation, and they don't apply it before Purim is laziness, right? I mean, just to be honest, right? If they know mathematically when they're supposed to call an extra month, and they don't do it because they're lazy or because of whatever reason, well, maybe there's an oinus, whatever. Maybe there's the Sanhedrin couldn't gather together for whatever reason. But I'm saying the things that you know mathematically, they should be ahead of the game. There are things that are only really kind of coming to form as the time goes through. But fundamentally, what you're saying is correct. Yes. Okay, so that's the first case. So then it's a question of Karis, because then it's a question of when Pesach is. All right. So Davar Zeh, what's Davar? The pasuk continues. Ki falim chad Davar. What's Davar? Zeh halacha. That is, so we said before that as a halacha. What does it mean halacha? So hilchas achadesar. These are the questions of the 11 days. Okay, so let me give a quick course of the laws of nida, right? The laws of female impurity. The Torah has 2 times if a woman sees blood, if she's impure. This is the laws of what's called nida and zava. Zava is a woman. It means a woman has her cycle every 30 days or so, and that's healthy, and that's the way it should be. So that when a woman has her time of the year, time of the month, in the healthy time, that's called the laws of nida. So then she's a nida if she sees blood, even just one drop of blood at one of the 7 days, as soon as in that 7-day period, means the woman has to keep a calendar, obviously, and as soon as she sees a little bit of blood in her 7-day period time that she knows that she's supposed to see blood. Today, all these laws don't apply today. We don't give any leniency. But in the days where they knew the difference between when a woman should be a nida or a ziva, so if she saw a drop of blood, she has to wait 7 days. After 7 days, then she goes to the mikvah and she's pure. It doesn't make a difference how long she sees blood. If she sees it 1 day or she sees it 7 days straight. Then there's there's in between. There's 11 days. Every 11 days after when there's her healthy time to have her cycle is its unhealthy time. That's called the laws of ziva. If she sees blood 3 days in a row, then she becomes impure for 7 days, and she needs to have 7 clean days before she could go to the mikvah and be pure again. Doesn't make a difference if she once it's 3 days, and it gets complicated because if she gives birth in that time, etc. So the question is, how do we count 11 days? Now, what happens if you only see 1 day? Let's say, so you only see 1 day. You see in the 11 days, she only sees 1 day. So then she's not impure for 7 days. She just has to keep 1 day to watch to make sure it doesn't build into a proper question of 3 days. So it's called Yom Echad Shimur. She has to watch a day. The thing is like this, that if she sees blood on the 11th day, there's nothing to do, because even if she would see blood on the 12th day, the 12th day starts a new time of the times of nida. So then the question is about the 10th day and the 11th and the 9th day. So the 9th day is not a problem. If she sees 9, 10, 11, then she's impure ziva, and no matter what, she has to wait 7 days to be pure. Not like the laws of nida. However, what the machlaikis is on the 10th day. Do you have to watch the 10th day, even though it's not possible for her to become a ziva if she sees it on the 10th day? Because all she has is the 10th and the 11th, and the 12th already starts her time of nida. So this becomes an argument. So davar, again, today, halachically, the rabbis accepted, the women on their own accepted the strictness, no matter what, they always wait 7 days. That's why a woman today will not go to the mikveh unless she has 7 clean days. But in the days of the past, there would be there's to be a difference between the days of nida and the days of ziva, and it's very complicated. How do we calculate the 7 and 11 days? Okay, so the Gemara is like this: Davar zu halacha. We're talking about a question of achadasar. Now the question obviously is if there's a question about the 10th day. So we want to find again. Rav Papa has to find is been given the exercise to find arguments where the Zaken Mamre would disagree with the Bezdin. They can't just create an argument, a fictional argument. So what would be the argument that the pasuk's talking about? If she sees on the 10th day of her 11-day ziva cycle. There's an argument. Do you have to watch or not? This argument goes into Beis Shammai Beis Hillel as well. But for some reason, he brings the argument of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. So it says like this. Achadas ad itmar, we learned. Asiri, Rabbi Yochanan Omar, Asiri Katishi. That if she sees blood on the 10th day, then the 10th day is like the 9th day. And just like the 9th day, she has to wait on the 10th day to see that everything is okay, that doesn't turn into a situation of 9, 10, 11. And therefore, so she's not allowed to, she's impure on the 10th day until she sees that she goes through the evening and everything is the way it should be. She's healthy. Rav Shimon ben Lakish, Reish Lakish says, Asiri kachadasar. No, because technically it cannot become a cycle of ziva, because there's no 3 days, it's only 10 and 11 left. And therefore it she doesn't have to watch she doesn't have to do a Yom Shimur on the 10th day. That just like the 9th day, the 9th day needs to be a day of watch, so to the 10th day it needs to be watched. Okay, so therefore, what would be the case? What would be the risk here? Rashi goes in. That's the reason why there's long Rashis is because, like I said, each argument is a sugya somewhere in its place in the Gemara. This is a sugya in the laws of Nida. Before we talked about a sugya, a machlekes in the sugya of Rosh Hashanah. So Rashi, just want to bring a Rashi says the question. What would be the chorus question? So he says the last Rashi on the page. Reish Lakish Amar Asiri kachadaser ma'achadaser lo b'yishimar. Shnei Maser Shari Eina Shnei Maser Yemei Ziva Af Asiri Lo B'yishimur. Because there's no 12 days of the Ziva period, it's only 11 days. So therefore, there's no day to watch because you don't have 3 days. The only thing that we have is concern if there could be 3 days in a row, because then she goes from a small ziva to a large ziva, and she has to bring a korban. She has to watch 7 days of purity. Shte halachas nemru b'yom echad eser dechalik mishar yamim shelefanav achas she'ein yitzarach shima v'achas she'ein nasa shima l'rius asiri. That the 10th day is that the halacha by the 10th day is one that it doesn't itself need to be watched if she sees blood on the 10th day, and also it's not a day that she watches that she watches if she sees on the 10th day itself. Let's say after the ruling of who's right, Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish, the rebellious rabbi disagrees with the ruling of the Sanhedrin. What happens if? So the question is very simple. If she is a shemeres yom kineged yom, if she sees blood on the 10th day, and she doesn't watch she goes according to the ruling that says you don't have to be careful on the 11th day because she's on the 10th day, and she has relations with her husband, and she ends up seeing blood at the end. So then, according to that ruling, if you went to the wrong side of the ruling, so it's a question of karis. It's karis that it's punishable by death to have relations when you're not supposed to with your wife. So therefore, it's a case where the Zaken Mamre would be arguing in a case of karis. We just do one more case, and then we'll stop, and we have a whole bunch of cases further. The next verse is mishpat. What is a mishpat? We're turning page 87 to 87b. Zed din. What is the din in bitay manusase? We learned this before already in Sanhedrin earlier of a person who has relations with, God forbid, incest with her child or with a grandchild. It's punishable by death. That we learned already. So the question is, the chorus is obviously when there's no witnesses. If there's witnesses, then they get put to death. The question is, what about a daughter of a rape? Means there was no marriage. A daughter of a rape is considered your daughter, and the Torah doesn't tell us anything clearly about the daughter of a rape. The Amar of Amalei Rav Yitzchak Barav Dumi, Isa Heina, Isa Zima Zima. We learned this a few months ago. So therefore, I'm going to see the Rashi to remind us the case. The Gemara says the Rav Yitzchak Barav Dumi be'elu Heina Srafim. We learned this before in the parak Elu Heina Srafim, the laws of burning. Parishis la gabi bitay. We learn it to be bitay manusase. The mehaydin yalfinen v'hu davish is dainikaris. Just want to remind myself the full case. Hold on, give me 1 second. Oh, I have a problem here. Not sure what it is, but hold on. Just give me 1 second here. So the case of the rebellious, sorry, the case of the daughter. So the question is, if the pasuk says clearly, hold on, I'm trying to bring up the case. 1 second. The computer's a little slow here. Oh, here we go. Okay. Case is okay. So it says like this. The Torah doesn't tell us like this. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah, there's no verse that says that a person is not allowed to have relations directly with their daughter of a rape. The verse, we have a verse that says like this, that you're not allowed to have relations with your granddaughter from your son or your daughter because it's an erva. Okay, and then we have a passage that says ervas isho bita loisigale espas benov espas bita loisigach. That you have a case of your wife's daughter, that we have a clear verse. So we have a case, we have a verse that teaches us that you're not allowed to have relations with your wife's daughter, which would be either your wife's daughter that she brought into the marriage or your wife's daughter that you had together in the marriage. So there's a clear verse that teaches us that there's no you're not allowed to have relations with a daughter through marriage or however she's through marriage, either being your actual daughter or your wife's daughter. And then we have a verse that says no matter what, your grandchildren you cannot have relations with. But there's no case that says a case where the daughter has no relationship, you have no relationship with the mother of the daughter, i.e. like in the case of rape. So it says, so where's the argument here? So Rabbi Yitzchak says that we learn from Heina Zima Zima. So who disagrees with this? So it's okay. Sorry, there's no disagreement here. Everyone agrees with this, but it's a ruling of Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdumi. But if the Zaken Mamre would disagree with Rabbi Yitzchak ben Avdumi, so then he would be in a violation of a case of Koros, because he would say, no, the Torah doesn't say anywhere you're not allowed to have relations with your daughter through rape, even though you're not allowed to have with your grandchildren or with your daughter through marriage. But Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdumi says that we learn it clearly from Gzer Shava of Heina Heina Zima Zima, that we compare that when it says Heina by the case of Zima and Heina by the case of the granddaughter, therefore it also applies that everything's equal to the case of where your wife's daughter, and just like in your wife's daughter, you're not allowed to have a relationship with the daughter herself, so too, in the case of rape, you can't have with your daughter themselves. But therefore, if the Zaken Mamre would disagree with that, then it would be a case where there's a question of Koros, because if the Zaken Mamre says it's not punishable by death, and the person rules that, and the person has relations, so then based on that ruling, it's going to end up being that that person violated a violation that according to the actual halacha is punishable by death. But he took the opinion of the Zaken Mamre, of the rebellious rabbi, and it comes a consequence of a death, a ruling that's connected to death. Okay, we're going to stop here. And the other cases is ben dam ledam ben dam nida, and we continue all the cases all the way down till the end of page, towards almost the end of the page of 88a, is when we finally get through all the cases where the Zaken Mamre could possibly argue about. So we only got through a few of them today, and hopefully Mirz Hashem next week we'll continue. Laila Tov, everyone. Take care. Shikoch for joining.